Hi, this is Ascelpius from Avatars Radio, inviting you to a special episode of Podcasts and Poetry this coming Monday, 5pm Pacific Time, 7pm Central or 8pm Eastern. We're airing a wonderful and chilling story from a new author. To celebrate, we're giving away copies of the book, as well as 2,000 crowns in prizes for a pop quiz after the airing. Join the live stream, that's twitch.tv/AvatarsRadioRocks, and or visit us at the studio in Immortal City. You will not want to miss this.
Hi, this is Dom.
This is Dan.
And this is Steve.
And we are...
Space Bards.
No, wait. No,
Recap.
Well, we're Recap and we're Space Bards.
Yeah, that's confusing.
And we messed that up. Let's just do that over again.
Who am I?
One more time.
Well,
No?
you're listening to Avatars Radio.
Hello everyone, this is DJ Ascelpius and welcome to Podcasts and Poetry. This is the part of our program where we shine the spotlight on the creative talent in our very own Shroud of the Avatar community. So just sit back and relax for some wonderful stories, poems and music. And good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. How are you going? It's good to have you. This is, of course, Podcast and Poetry. We've got a special program today. We've got 3 awesome new stories. We've got a pop quiz coming up later. We've got cash to give away. We've got books to give away, would you believe? Okay, if you front up to our studio where we're broadcasting from, I have some books scattered on my desk, and they're provided by the author of one of our stories, so feel free to take one. That would be great. Okay, now, as I said, we've got a few really good stories coming up. I've got 3 stories from the vault that I'm going to run first, and then the main event of the day. So let's get started. Sarah quickly moved to the front to defend Dr. Zazaris, and they slowly moved into the caverns. Upon entering, they travelled to the left and found mechanized cats and kobolds, which fiercely attacked them. They quickly opened up a hatch to a lower level and found themselves in a deeper level of corral. Sarah swung her sword at some watchers, which seemed to be ignoring commands from the oracle, and dispatched them. The next room was filled with a purple mist that confused anyone that walked through it. Moving to the next room, they were met with a torrent of steam which burned through layers of their clothing. Dr. Zazaris quickly cast heal spells as they made their way to the right. Inside the next room, an electrical machine targeted people, giving damage and focus loss per second. Moving on, Sarah and Dr. Zazaris found themselves in a hall with poisonous gas, which choked anyone who walked through it. Sarah quickly levelled an automated assassin and a kobold brawler who were blocking their path. Dr. Zazaris quickly looked around the tunnels for any clues that might lead them to the location of the factories of the Clockwork Dragon. Upon entering the next room, they discovered it was a giant electrical room that blocked focus and tried to block their path. They turned left and then left again and entered a large room of very hot steam, which once again burned their clothing. Sarah quickly dispatched the mechanical ravens which were hiding in the room. Another turn to the right brought them in a red mist room, the gas of which seemed to be poisonous. Each of the gases they figured out could be turned off with valves scattered through the corral hallways. They turned right and then right again and entered a hall filled with kobold grenadiers and kobold brawlers. After dispatching them, they came up to a higher level and found a minecart track which the kobolds were probably using for transporting mining equipment and other supplies. As they made their way into an open space, they found beta monkeys standing around. After the last one died, they stood still for a moment to look around. Sarah and Dr. Zazarus could hear odd machine sounds coming from the left. They turned to the left to see what it was. There was a wide hallway and door with blood all over the floor and walls. It was apparent that something had died repeatedly trying to get out of the room. Inside, the room was filled with spikes that would go up and down, which were triggered randomly by kobolds who were in the room above. As they entered the room, they spotted a mage standing over a pile of dead shock monkey gold bodies. Shock monkey gold are fearsome mechanical monsters that stun anyone who comes near them. Sarah waved at the mage standing in the centre of the room. "Hail, Corpor, how fare thee this fine day?" Sarah asked. "I am very well, thank you. These kobolds continuously send shock monkey gold constructs at me to test their machines," Corpor said. "Have you seen if they construct clockwork dragons here?" Sarah asked. "I believe they do. I have seen a room with a clockwork dragon deep in the bowels of Kroll. If you go back and take a right and head deeper into the mines, you'll be able to see the room below the clockwork construction zone," Corpor said. "Thanks, Corpor. We'll see you around," Sarah said. Chapter 7. Scouting. Sarah selected. Sarah and Dr. Zazarus began scouting the rest of Kroll. They found the location where the clockwork dragons were being constructed, and also a cavern filled with a kobold city. After they had thoroughly mapped the entirety of Kroll, they headed out and made a camp on a hill overlooking Blood Bay. "Thank you for helping me map the area of Kroll. We'll have to come back on some other occasions and see if we can deconstruct some of the kobold's technology," Sarah said. "Deconstruct, huh? You mean deconstruct by hitting it with a sword?" Dr. Zazarus asked with a chuckle. "That does seem like the best way to deconstruct kobold technology. Now that we know Kroll, we can come back later," Sarah said. "All right, I'm going to teleport back to Baron's Reach. Hopefully, they have come to a decision," Dr. Zazarus said. "I will stay here and scout more of Blood Bay," Sarah said. "Take care of yourself, Sarah. If you need me, you know how to find me," Dr. Zazarus said, then teleported back to Baron's Reach. Dr. Zazarus walked into the sleeping quarters provided by the courthouse, and just as she was going to sit down and rest after the 3-day journey, a knock on the door made her get back up on her feet. Dr. Zazarus walked back to the door and opened it up. Ascelpius was standing outside. "Greetings, Governor Zazarus. I am happy to say that the reviewers have made their decision," Ascelpius said. "Oh, do tell," Dr. Zazarus said. "Congratulations. You have been selected to be a magistrate for the courthouse of Baron's Reach. You now have access to storage and space within the courthouse that will help you perform your duties as a magistrate. We will also provide you with the robes of a magistrate," Ascelpius said. "Thank you, Asta. I look forward to helping the court of Baron's Reach adjudicate the laws of Novia," Dr. Zazarus said. And next up, we've got Tavern Respite. Here we go. Hello everyone, this is Ascelpius with a further instalment of this wonderful story from Elgarian entitled The Tavern Respite. Background music, Tavern Song by Omi the Bard. Chapter 2. Return to Bear Tavern. Elgarian shuffled his way down the darkened hall to his chambers above the common room of Bear Tavern, an establishment which twice now has brought him the comfort of a fine ale and friendly folk. The door opened with a squeal, which comforted him to know unannounced guests would likely be heard. Setting his sack of books and scrolls upon the desk, he quickly cast aside his boots and sat with intent upon the desk's chair, pulling out his journal again with quill and ink. Balak had just warned him that some of the patrons were not taking kindly to Elgarian's scrivenings, consisting of their names, their stories, and even sketches of their personages. Bah! How indeed will I remember all that is said? Though the man does make a point, he stated to the air in the room. Certainly a proprietor of such an establishment had learned, through the years, what his patrons prefer. Elgarian decided to rethink how he would document the happenings of Bear Tavern, or, in the least, try his best not to offend those most secretive. Recollecting the past night's discussions, the venerable sorcerer spent another hour before succumbing to sleep, recounting this evening's tales and news of lands abroad. They spoke of the horrors of starvation after the fall, and the drunkard even spoke as if he was there during that time. Could these merely have been the imaginations brought on by ale? Many spoke of these stories, however. The dwarf, called Blake by those present, said there was a place, the Bluffs, which harbours deep caverns beneath, caverns which housed the starving masses after the cataclysm. I suspect strongly that if these catacombs are littered with the dead of those lost during the fall, likely their most precious belongings were lost within. Diaries accounting of these horrid times are likely to be found. Perhaps even survivors from Kali hid within the labyrinth. I must find these tunnels, for amongst the remains of the fallen, the fate of Kali might be revealed. Again, the drunkard spoke, almost in riddles, a grimoire of ancient origin. If I can speak to this man away from prying ear and watchful eye, perhaps he will reveal more about the nature of this text. I will introduce myself to him next we meet, and perhaps I can get a few words from him before he loses his wit from drink. The one called Kazan Phoenix Fire, he has knowledge of an ancient city which bears a name most familiar. Could it be that Trinsic existed before the fall? Could I know this city? If he holds texts which detail the origins of such a place, surely there could be mention of Kali. I can only dream this to be true, but if Kazan knows the location of Trinsic, and I can learn of Kali's relative position from it, at least I might have found a way to Kali, if I am so lucky. The history of Trinsic must run deep. A tale of Telenor Arator, the Phoenix Egg, seemingly speaks much of its greatness. A city which apparently took its insignia from that same runic symbol. I will certainly pick the brain of this Kazan, a man seeming most receptive to conversations of times forgotten. And again the dwarf spoke, Daedalus, Weeping Seven, cryptic words for a confused soul such as I. Next we meet, when words become sparse and uncomfortable silence ensues, be assured I will ask questions of these. The answers I seek could lie in any tale or news from abroad. I must not discount any possibilities. The lady, they called her Amber. She overheard the ramblings of my weary lips from a weary mind. I perhaps embarrassed myself with such bold blatherings of my quest for knowledge, but alas, she took a kindness upon me and offered a most valuable and generous gift, an invitation to view her extensive library. I was confounded by surprise and possibly a little flustered from the wine. I most certainly will take up her most gracious offer and somehow repay her in kind. The Book of the High Priestess. It will be the first I ask to see. Clergy, often granted divinations by the gods, chronicle well the history of each era. I doubt not that this librum might hold valuable knowledge. But from what era, I will soon know. and with Amber's assistance with translations, my work will go quickly. Elgarian Dicali turned the journal back several pages, stopping for a moment upon each. The sketch of the tavern from this evening, the sketch from the week prior, reminded him of other conversations which he had nearly forgotten. Hastily, he jotted them down, his penmanship suffering as his weariness grew. His notes from before, he read them again, aloud to himself. "Nothing," I asked. "Nothing," the old man grumbled to himself. All the notes from the week prior, the questions he intended to ask, were never broached. Now, the list had lengthened. So many questions. No answers. The start of so many tales. Whispers of places unfamiliar. The undead. Piles of books unread. Elgarian sighed deeply, then closed his journal and capped the ink. After wiping the quill clean and dousing the candle, he set his studies aside for the evening and turned to the bed, lying down upon the feather mattress. Again, staring into the darkness of his chamber, he quickly slipped into sleep. The void had claimed him again, and this dream would not bring answers. It only brought fear. Okay, one more story, and then we get on with the main topic of the day. This is Chateau Leventari, Stone Dragon, Chapter 2, Episode 2, Chapter 4.
Book 2, Chapter 4. How much for that information? Thick mist in the early dawn made the still water of the lake reflect only the muted gray of the world around. Even the birds were silent. It was quite mesmerizing to watch the nothing. After a long while of watching birds hunt low over the water and the rippling rings of movement in the water where fish pecked at bugs on the surface of the smooth deep blue, I went back to the inn and woke the other two women. We then made all our way downstairs from where we had fallen asleep on the second floor of the pavilion. After breaking our fast with leftover bread from our bags, we had a bit of a hike up the mountain to where the wagon collected us to start us on our journey to Iron Hall. The jaunt out of Jade Mountains and over the island shores had revitalized our bodies and minds, and even our spirits lifted when, by mid-morning, the mist had burned off enough to see the light flicker through and warm the chill out of the day. There were massive thunderheads, and the sky remained in a darkened battle with itself high above the sea as we journeyed that day. I would like to have sung a song of joy and beauty, but I dared not. I was sure that sore vocal cords, the aches of my muscles, and the headache I still suffered were all worth the revelry around the fire pit the night before. But this suffering wasn't something I wanted to repeat anytime soon. From the looks of the other two, it appeared like Zarina and Lucy would agree with me. Zarina became horribly sick after her first meal on the ship, and we teased her a little about her travel stomach, thinking the motion of the ship had set her off, but Lucy went snooping and found a problem with the filthy kitchen. The ship's cook had died of some mysterious stomach ailment just before we had boarded. Lucy first convinced whatever sailor had unfortunately pulled kitchen duty for this voyage that she was indeed a good cook and wanted to cook a meal, that she was bored as a passenger and would prefer to help in the kitchen. Lucy started by cleaning up the galley kitchen with hot water and soap. Then she taught a few of the sailors a simple recipe for fish that they could do on their own. The captain humored her, then cheerfully let her cook the rest of the meals on the voyage after tasting his first helping of her fish stew and biscuits. He had 3 helpings. The rest of the crew were won over by the very same meal. Zarina spent most of the voyage either sick or recovering from being sick. It looked like the sea did not agree with her after all. I spent the days practicing a new sea shanty that I heard some of the crew singing one day while they scrubbed the deck. Most of the time, I could be found wandering around humming the tune. When we arrived in Iron Hall, the sounds and sights near the docks kept our senses occupied while we searched for Violet's ship and also for the young man called Finn Bienna. Though Fiona had been explicit about how to get to Ironhall, she was vague on the location of Finn's working area or his schedule or pretty much anything other than he would know where all the ships that arrived at the local port were heading or where they had been. Asking for him didn't help. The locals stared at us as if we were asking why the sky wasn't a lemon meringue pie, and then they clammed up or wandered off. There was no help for it. We would have to search to find Lake Town and then search Lake Town from one end to the other. We split up and started looking. Zarina eventually found him and called us over. He was sitting behind the Broken Docks Inn and looking for all the world as if he were avoiding being found. He didn't seem especially friendly either. We decided on a friendly approach anyway, with a gift of rum from my backpack and bread from Lucy's. What man can withstand 3 beautiful women bearing rum and bread? I tell you that Finn almost did. We got so little information from him that after several minutes of talk, we began to wonder at Fiona's glowing endorsement. Finally, Lucy had had enough of the vagueness. Fiona said he would know where the ship had gone, Lucy complained in a half-whisper to me. Finn suddenly perked up. Fiona, you say? You travel from Jade Mountains? Is that Fiona Thatcher that you mentioned? I looked him in the eyes, which he had finally dragged off the map and scrap of paper that he had been pretending to read the entire time. Fiona, yes, she gave you an encouraging testimonial, but I'm skeptical at this point. You don't seem to know much about what is outside your map. At this I nodded toward the paper that Finn was rolling back up. Finn narrowed his eyes. Can't be too careful these days, ladies. There are far too many forces afoot to be glib about casually passing information. Then he added casually, How is Fiona? Her brother Oscar tells me nothing of her when he and I work at the docks, and he rarely works at the docks anymore. I smiled to myself as I recognized Finn's feigned casual interest in Fiona's well-being. Fiona was healthy and full of vigor when she left us to go cook stew for Oscar. What do you mean by forces afoot? Zarina interjected, curious. Meanwhile, I was sizing up the young man and his surroundings. There were no clues that he would know the whereabouts of any of the ships that came and went in the harbor, let alone anything else in Ironhall. Lucy and I gave each other quizzical looks and shrugged our shoulders. Maybe Fiona was wrong about Finn. Well, let's see. Finn narrowed his eyes and took a darting look around the area before speaking further. Take that tattooed mage that waited nearly a week for the ship he arrived on to leave again. He had come from Spindleskoog and arrived on a passenger ship that was scheduled to be here for a week. He was not pleased and tried to bribe the captain to leave again on his schedule, but the captain refused. The troublemaking mage asked probing questions about everything and everybody in the whole of Lake Town and gave little away about himself. Here, Zarina looked over at me and snorted under her breath. I stuck my tongue out at her, grinning, knowing how inquisitive I seemed. Why would some traveler button it? Finn sounded truly perplexed, even as he continued, looking down while fiddling with the rolled parchments in his clenched hands. What mage is this? It was Lucy's turn to perk up. The quiet one? Finn returned with a question. Finn found himself facing 3 pair of iron-tinged, inquiring eyes. He decided that more information sharing might be in his best interest. Finally putting down the now wrinkled scroll and scrap of paper, he accepted the bread, then the rum. Then he added, Did Fiona say if she was coming here to meet you? He looked over their shoulders hopefully. No, she is staying in Jade Mountains and is not traveling with us. She did say she expected you for dinner on your return to Jade Mountain. Smiling, I let him down gently, and though he appeared to lose interest in us, he did perk up again when I repeated, She did say she expected you for dinner. He looked engrossed again, following the promise of a meal in the future with Fiona, so I prompted, The tattooed mage? Tattooed mage. Tattooed mage, he mimicked. Zarina went completely still, except her left hand, which gripped her bow, and her right hand, which went automatically to the fletching on her arrows. Finn looked up in the silence after his sarcastic comment. The glaring didn't cease, and those arrows in the sullen one's hands looked sharp and deadly, so he continued with a false bravado, and an indifferent shrug to start telling what he knew of the mage. Small, blue and green tattoos on his face, walked non-stop during the day. Didn't sit much. Dressed in obsidian robes, I think. He carried a big blue bag and a little leather-bound book that he seemed particularly fond of. He spent far too much time reading to himself under his breath from that book while he waited for the ship's repair. Lucy shifted her weight and her armor squeaked loudly. "Do you know where he was going?" she asked quietly. He looked up for a flicker of a moment. "Nope, but he came here to go to the caverns of Skrek." "Nope, I don't know what he was doing there either," he forestalled after seeing the question rising in my eyes. Then he added as an afterthought, "He wasn't an especially skilled mage. He often got sidetracked during spellcasting, if even something as harmless as a stray cat walked by. Every now and then he would try some magic, but it never seemed to go the way he wanted it to go. As well as the ship he arrived on needed repair from his onboard failures, there were several fires and one small explosion here in Lake Town that I helped to put out," he puffed out proudly. "Not one building burnt down." We stood motionless, listening to him. He seemed too warm to his story. He continued after a pause for a nip of rum straight from the bottle and a chunk of bread, which he tucked back into his robes without sharing. "That maid stomped around the village every single day, rain or shine, walking, always walking, and muttering himself too. I tried to get him to go to the pub to share a pint and a story or two, but he just stared through me until I had to give up. It was that unnerving." He shuddered a little. "We was all relieved to see him get back on that ship when she was ready to sail again." At this, we all reacted with raised eyebrows. He looked at our reactions and went on. "None thought we'd see the end of him. He was that picky about everything, as if there was something to pick from. The Seabird remained the only ship that anchored in port in Ironhall for the entire week, so in the end, he went back aboard, but only after he offered the captain 3 times the normal passenger fees to take him back." "The Seabird? That's my sister's ship. When did it leave? Where did it go? Did you see a snowy lynx on the ship?" Finn laughed heartily at the successive questions and answered openly. "Yes, she left this morning, just as your ship arrived. Jade Valley is their next destination." Here I gasped, "That's my home." Finn ignored me and continued. "The crew was muttering about the captain sending their best cook on an errand and having to drop her off along the way, but I didn't hear where to. Something about a cook, a fish stew, and an escort mission." He forestalled the next question, shaking his head and wringing his hands in front of him. "No, I don't know where after Jade Valley, but I know they're going to end up in Jade Island and Green's Inch, where Captain Violet likes to spend the winters." He didn't nearly look as ready to bolt in any direction at any minute anymore, and I could see Rena had released the tension on her bow, so she must have been having the same thoughts as me. Cyrena gave me a curt nod after moving slowly from around behind Finn again. I was relieved and thanked him by going on. "I really didn't think it would be that easy to get this information we needed from you, Finn, and here you just blurted some out." Then Zarina narrowed her eyes, jutted out her chin, and asked him very directly, "What is it you want in return for this information?" Finn looked at her and shrugged. He had warmed up to us, and he finally realized we were not searching for him particularly, and he was not the real target of our very pointy-looking arrows and blades. "Nothing," he shrugged again. "You're a friend of Fiona's. If you had told me that at the beginning, we might have had an easier start." He stared hard right back at Cyrena. "If you're looking for the Seabird, the shipping schedules are usually posted on the public bulletin board near the arrival area. If it's a town the Seabird regularly docks in, that is. It's the same for all the places she travels." Zarina again strode behind Finn to take a leisurely look at the lake beyond. She gave me a quick wink, and I nodded once, knowing. He looked at me. "Do you know where else your sister is sailing to?" I shook my head, frowning slightly, and to keep his attention on me, "How long till she comes back?" Could be weeks or months. Some of the locals have a betting pool on for the odds of their returning date. Want to place a bet? At this, his eyes darted from side to side, and he looked at Lucy and I furtively. I shook my head no, as did Lucy. He turned to Zyrina, who also declined to place a bet. Fair enough. Good day. We will take our leave. Thank you for your assistance. Lucy nodded her head to him. With that curt farewell, we picked up our bags and walked out of town. The minute we were out of sight and earshot, I asked, "Did you get it?" Then turned to Zyrina. Yep. She pulled the stolen papers out of her boot that Finn had been so intent on when we first arrived. They had suffered quite a few wrinkles in the process, but were completely readable still. The Southern Red Branch was scrawled across the top of a detailed map of Elysium Island, with several towns circled in red. Jade Valley was one of those. And another scrap of paper tucked inside the map simply said, 3, 2, 2, M. Now what the Titans does that mean? Lucy was as perplexed as I was. Same writing as that other paper with numbers from Riverside, and from Scrota's too. She pulled them from her pack. See? Zyrina was right. Though the paper's torn edges didn't match, we could see that the numbers were drawn by the same hand. Still without understanding, Zyrina added the new set of numbers to the pile and tucked them all away in her backpack. Have any of you ever heard of the Southern Red Branch before? Do you think they are part of the Red Sashes? I asked the others, as I ran my fingers over the raised embossed heading on the map. The only answers were headshakes or shrugs. No one spoke up. Come on, let's go home, I decided.
All right, and now we come to the piece de resistance of the day. This is an item that was sent to me by Rim Starcrossed. I have had so much fun and pleasure putting this together. I hope you enjoyed as much as I did. Now, in context, you will be aware that the country or the world of Novia is now being visited by a comet. So what does the comet do? What's it all about? What effects does it have? Well, if you don't know, then you have to find out. And you might have to commission an expedition to go and see what's happening with this crazy thing. And that is exactly what is involved with the Star-Crossed expedition. Here it is. The Star-Crossed Expedition unto the breach. It would be a gross understatement to say that the Lady Arabella was not in the least bit amused by the interruption of that week's episode of Podcasts and Poetry, her favourite Avatars Radio broadcast, when prolonged pulses of white noise rendered the program all but indecipherable. Thus began the investigation. Eventually, we came to suspect that the sudden manifestation of assorted mutated fauna might be associated with the comet's etheric emanations, when the ether vibration amplifiers in affected locales inexplicably evinced similar elevated levels of static interference across select bandwidths, concurrent with the bizarre effects on the animals in those areas as the comet neared our planet. In compiling this narrative account of the Star-Crossed expedition's findings, I have had recourse to the team's journals, reports, and the personal recollections of its members. The expedition was commissioned by Vincent, magic supplies merchant of Brittany Estates, on the 8th day of April of the 697th year following the cataclysm, at the behest of the Northwood Astronomical Society, and consisted of
Catty, xenobiologist and team leader.
Yorgi, botanist.
Arminius, cryptopathologist.
Eunice, virologist.
Its mission was to gather information regarding possible connections between the peculiar comet's reappearance in our skies and the dramatic upsurge of organic anomalies evidenced throughout New Britannia. Wildlife has been distorted, twisted to a nightmarish reflection of its former nature. Deformed creatures not hitherto encountered stalk contorted forests, eager to ambush any unwary traveller. The list seems interminable. The Guild of Magic Supplies Merchants has been mobilised across New Britannia to coordinate the collection of information. Their shops serve as collection centres at which volunteers may recount their personal encounters. We gratefully acknowledge the contributions of the innumerable participants involved in our survey, without whom compilation of the essential data would not be possible. May 10th, 697 PC.
This place would be spooky if spooks were real.
Aye. Even ghost towns are at least haunted by restless spirits. This is just desolate, comatose, like having walked into a snapshot, all the accoutrements of living but no motion, no life. The entire population has simply been erased, written out of their own story.
It should have the decency to decompose, even to crumble back into the landscape from which it sprang. It's as though time and entropy have taken a holiday from here.
One cannot help but wonder what happened. There is no evidence of a catastrophe, natural or otherwise. It's as if the hope and vision that gave this town its vitality simply dissipated, fizzled, leaving only this hollow shell of its former, vibrant self.
We have encountered many disturbing events since Vincent sent us from Brittany Estates to assess the comet's etheric disturbance. But it's the sheer number of these mysteriously deserted settlements that I find most alarming. I know it'll be a longer walk, but let's skirt the perimeter rather than pass through. This bird gives me the creeps.
Agreed.
May 11th, 697 PC.
A field agent must be versed in many disciplines and, of necessity, possessed of an eclectic assortment of skills. Insanity isn't a prerequisite for becoming an ecology researcher, but it certainly helps. Our vocation is a textbook example of psychosis. When every instinct of self-preservation screams run away, we intentionally veer in the opposite direction, directly into the face of adversity, to scrutinize, study, and catalog the aberration. Not, Eunice, to engage that threat.
Caddy, I do understand. I'm young, but not foolish. I'll be cautious.
By his neasing a light doth shine, and his eyes are like the eyelids of the morning. Out of his mouth go burning lamps, and sparks of fire leap out. Out of his nostrils goeth smoke, as out of a seething pot or cauldron. His breath kindleth coals, and a flame goeth out of his mouth. He maketh a path to shine after him, one would think the deep to be hoary.
Yorgi, what on earth are you speaking about? You seem almost entranced.
Our celestial visitor up there, the comet! Leviathan! Ah, Bob, I should have known you just can't resist a pun. Astronomical proportions indeed.
What is that you're reading?
Theoria motus corporum coelestium in sectionibus conicus solum ambientium.
What? Care to translate that? My major was virology, not Latin.
The theory of the motion of the heavenly bodies moving about the sun in conic sections, by Professor Robert Gauss.
Oh. Dr. Bob. I love him. I attended a few of his lectures at the Northwood Observatory during my sophomore year. He's absolutely fascinating, and kind of cute.
Well, I'll forward your approval when next I chance upon the good professor. He wrote this treatise as his doctoral thesis in 693 when he was a mere lad of 17. Quite a remarkable prodigy, actually. I was reading chapter 11, The Dynamics of a Comet, reviewing information regarding our curious wayfarer up there. Listen.
Contrary to the origins of many extraterrestrial objects traversing the New Britannian skies, the emergence of the comet does not appear to be directly linked to the event known as the fall. Its initial recorded sighting is marked on the 8th of Mos in the year 545 post-cataclysm. It seems improbable that an event of such significant astronomical scale would have been overlooked in historical records approximately 20 times over the preceding 5.5 centuries. At present, it is my firm belief, open to revision should contrary evidence emerge, that the comet is either an object originating external to our native planetary system, and which was captured in our planet's gravity well sometime between the 8th of September of the year 523 and, at the latest, the date of its initial appearance. Or a body previously in orbit about our planet, inexplicably buffeted into a new trajectory between said dates. The comet reportedly disappeared from view some 4.5 years later, on September 8, 549, not to return for 17.5 years. Despite this, the comet has reappeared at regular 26-year intervals, becoming visible to the naked eye 2 weeks before the vernal equinox and staying visible for 8.5 years. It then vanishes 2 weeks before the autumnal equinox and remains absent for the next 17.5 years.
Here, see the illustration of the comet's elliptical course around our sun? It's currently about here in its circuit. As it approaches the sun, a comet heats up and spews gas and dust in glowing tails, invariably pointing away from the parent star, hence the limited duration of visibility from... How could I have been so utterly blind? The sun is set behind us, in the west, but Leviathan's tail stretched downward toward the eastern horizon. The primary tail should be pointing directly away from both the sun and us, foreshortened and nearly invisible behind the comet's nucleus from our perspective, a thin, ring-shaped nimbus encircling the opaque sphere of ice. Yet, as you can see, it is plainly evident, extending perpendicular to the sun, stretching backward along the path of its own trajectory. Whatever that thing is. The mysterious Leviathan certainly is not a conventional comet.
Exhaust plumes?
Yorgi, you're scaring me.
Caddy, welcome to the club.
May 12th, 697 PC.
The OBT indicates that we have multiple bogeys at 203 degrees true bearing, south-southwest, at approximately 2.5 leagues. And they're reading 2.6 gigabentums, roughly 15 meters below our present elevation.
Underground?
Probably, unless there's a drastic dip in the landscape between here and there.
I still don't understand that confounded contraption.
The omnidirectional Bentham detector, OBD for short, is an ingenious modification of the common portable ether vibration amplifier, your mobile wireless that plays music streamed from a moon tower. But some of the standard components, most notably the flux adapter, have been electrosonically engineered toward its specific purpose, to passively detect and display the direction, range, and signal strength of emanators of specific nu and theta harmonics of the ether band frequency emitted by the comet, the Leviathan. Said harmonics have been identified as unique to the creatures suffering cellular mutation by this frequency. The OBD has a maximum operating range of 3 leagues, subject to weather and terrain limitations.
What?
It's a monster finder.
Oh. Okay.
Were we to depart now, we'd still not arrive there until after nightfall. We'll get a fresh start first thing in the morning, following a good night's sleep.
May 13th, 697 PC.
We didn't stand a chance. Eunice was down before we were even aware that those hellspawn spiders were upon us. It was only by mere good fortune that we were able to drag her back to safety as we retreated.
I was astonished, seeing firsthand the magnitude of the mutations inflicted on this cluster by the Ether Comet. Not only their unbelievable size, the length of their mandibles, like scimitars, carapace like armor, and their speed. I shudder at the very thought of those malformed aberrations.
Don't obsess about this, Caddy. You cannot blame yourself for this unforeseeable mishap.
Oh, Yorgi, I thank you for your intended kindness, but, as expedition leader, the welfare of each member is ultimately my responsibility. I should have taken more precautions prior to entering that cave. The sheer abundance of the webbing strung throughout the cavern, the unusual thickness of the strands, should have forewarned me that something was amiss. But we have more pressing concerns than assuaging my personal culpability. The spider's venom is having its way with Eunice. Her condition worsens by the minute. The furs in which we've wrapped her, and proximity to our campfire, have done little to alleviate the pallor and waxen texture of her skin. Her breathing remains shallow, and her shivering has intensified. The beasts surrounding our encampment will sense the weakening of our band, and soon be emboldened to attack. We must make haste in effecting a cure of Eunice's affliction. Our situation waxes more perilous with every moment's delay. These gusting snow flurries and those dark, roiling clouds portend the imminent onslaught of a tempestuous storm. We have already jeopardized her life by transporting her this far from the cave. She has not the stamina to endure farther travel.
These corrupted spiders have been our bane ever since we set forth from Brittany Estates. I would see the entire species wiped from the face of New Britannia.
The contents of our med-kit have not sufficed to neutralize the severity of the infection. It is imperative that we gather the berries of the deadly nightshade plant. They are an essential component of the potion needed to counteract the venom inflicted by the arachnid's bite. And the only accessible location in which it grows at this altitude is, ironically, the very lair of the cause of our distress.
Yorgi, it is settled then. It is required that you go, for only you will recognize the herbs required for the cure. Come first light of the morrow, I must prevail upon you to once again dare the dangers of those caves, to scavenge the curative berries whilst we remain behind with our fallen companion. During the interim of your absence, Arminius will patrol the perimeter of our encampment to fend off what beasts may approach, whilst I tend to Eunice, rendering what aid I might. Fortune favor you, Yorgi. Pray that by stealth may be accomplished that which direct confrontation cannot.
May 14th, 697 PC.
When Vincent informed me,
Yorgi, my friend, you will be going on an extended sabbatical.
I envisioned lounging on a tropical beach, sipping pina coladas amidst a harem of scantily clad, mocha-skinned native beauties. Hardly this. These bones upon which I'm treading certainly do not bode well for interlopers into these caves. Dark. But fortunately, the indigenous bioluminescent mushrooms provide enough light by which to see. It seems that fortune's favor is literally shining on me. Ah, so there you linger, my beautiful lady. Even in this dim light, I recognize your telltale purple flowers. With your permission, of course, I'll just use my sickle to gently relieve you of some of those lovely berries you're sporting. Despite taxonomic tradition, it is my belief that the name belladonna originates from a scorned suitor's spite, due to your toxic nature. Conversely, some argue that it derives from your cosmetic use, as many young women have used your juice to dilate their pupils. The poor things believe it will enhance their seductive appearance. No offense intended to our present company, I assure you. No! A giant spider! I'm done for! Get a hold of yourself, man. A quick step back to get a better position. Even with a humble sickle, there is hope. This is a test of courage. All right, you ugly mutated freak. If I go down, I'm taking you with me. To battle. Take that! You eight-legged freak! Well, now, that was much easier than I'd anticipated. The berry's alkaloid residue on my sickle's blade must have acted quickly, indeed, when I thrust it into that monster's maw. But wait! What is that behind its hollow fangs? Venom glands? Caddy will never forgive me if I don't retrieve them.
Yorgi.
Arminius, just a moment. I must adjust the position of the alembic on our campfire's coals. There. Yes, now, you were saying.
I don't mean to distract you from the distillation of those berries, to concoct an extract. I know it must be an exacting task. But, correct me if I'm wrong, isn't nightshade considered one of the deadliest toxins known to man?
Well, nightshade is, properly speaking, a family of plants, Solanaceae, of which potatoes, tomatoes, and eggplants are members. But you are correct, this particular species, Belladonna, more commonly known as deadly nightshade, can be extremely poisonous. Herbology, though, is much like sunlight. The energy of life can also kill if too intense or exposure is excessively prolonged. The difference, Arnie, between poison and medicine is only in the dosage. A potion comprised of the alkaloid extract of these berries in proper proportion with the essence of crushed garlic cloves should neutralize the neurotoxins in Eunice's bloodstream. All things in moderation, eh? Here you go, Caddy. Elixir of belladonna for one beautiful lady, to be administered in 1 ounce doses thrice a day at equal intervals. No more, no less. And this for the other.
Whatever is in that oily bundle, Yorgi? It looks, rather slimy. Oh! You darling, darling man. You shouldn't have. Venom glands are a xenobiologist's best friend.
Mwah.
Aw. Shucks.
May 16th, 697 PC.
I hate garlic.
Now, Eunice, take your medicine like a big girl. And Yorgi, is this liniment helping your wrenched shoulder?
Ah. Much better.
You, old man, should know better. Battling mutated monstrosities is a task more suited to stalwart young warriors than to aging academicians.
Tell that to our dearly departed arachnoid friend lying cold, back there on the cavern's floor.
Caddy has pronounced Eunice fit for travel. The blizzard has passed, our belongings are packed, and I've replenished my supply of survey tickets. So, if you slugabeds have had your fill of dawdling, we've many a league for which to compensate, thanks to this impromptu vacation, and daylight is wasting. Once more unto the breach, dear friends, once more. The Bug Brigade rides again.
A letter dated May 17th, 697 PC.
Dearest Caddy, we're frantic. Professor Bentham's strategy failed miserably. He'd theorized that we needed to tune the entire network of New Britannian moon towers to the comet's etheric frequency and amplitude, then invert the signal. This would blanket our planet in a sheath of etheric energy in diametric opposition to that of the intruding comet. It should have countered and canceled the radiant energy in our stratosphere, and thereby prevented further mutations on the surface. It seemed reasonable to expect that the out-of-phase flux would do just that. Unfortunately, to put it mildly, the magnitude of the resultant signal proved much too great for our systems. Every moon tower in New Britannia, the entire grid, exploded in unison in what can only be described as an atmospheric fireworks display of unprecedented proportions. Under other circumstances, the spectacle would have been magnificent. Arabella is furious. Bentham has been taken into what she is calling protective custody, for lynch mobs of thousands of irate teens have taken to the streets hunting for him, fervent to visit just retribution on the criminal who's deprived them of their avatar's radio music programs. A disturbingly lifelike effigy of him hanging by the neck from the charred remains of the Brittany Moon Tower has since been removed. Until such time as repairs can be accomplished, previously safe towns lie unprotected from the prowling beasts and marauders formerly held at bay by the tower's interdiction. It is now more imperative than ever that your team succeed. In dire desperation, Vinny.
And thus you are brought up to date on the current state of affairs as we again experience the return of the Ether Comet. Should you chance upon one of the ecology researchers in the wild, please do give them a moment of your time, accept a survey ticket, and participate in the survey at one of the designated magic shops to receive a token gift of appreciation. This piece was produced with AI from Revoicer, using the voices of Tyler, Axel, Zoe, Nova, Robert, and Adam. Music: Unto the Breach, original composition by Rim Starcrossed, executed in ABC format. Sound effects by courtesy of Freesound. Full production notes can be viewed at avatarsradio.rocks/production notes. Okay, so that's the story, and I hope you were listening and taking note. Because it's time for a bit of a quiz. Now, a couple of easier ones first. For 1,000 crowns, Yorgi quotes from a text written by astronomer Dr. Bob in-game. Now, Dr. Bob can be found in his observatory. In what town? Where is Dr. Bob? Okay, we'll have a couple of messages from our sponsors while you think about that. You can put it in chat, in the game chat, or in Discord, and I'll be watching out for an answer.
Are you looking for action, adventure, and epic loot? Avatar Relics can't really help you with the first two, but we have the third one in the bag. Use code AvatarsRadio at avatarrelics.com.
You are tuned in to Avatars Radio, independent, chaotic community radio of the Avatars, broadcasting inside MMO games. This is a special thank you message for all your years of support, Avatars. We count on our Avatar patrons to keep our lights on and broadcasting all of your great music and dramatic...
And we have a winner.
If you choose to become a patron of Avatars Radio, that means you are a patron of the metaverse arts and a guardian of the airwaves. Congrats. Achievement unlocked. Special thanks to our current Patreon supporters: Istral Maroa, AvatarRelics.com, Ghost Turtle, and Bytor. To learn how you can become an Avatars Radio patron and guardian of the airwaves, visit us on the web at www.avatarsradio.rocks/patron today.
You are listening to Avatars Radio. Radio of the Avatars.
When our DJs aren't live, our content is 100% community created. If you are a musician or other audio artist and would like to have your work aired on Avatars Radio, contact us today.
Alrighty, so we have a winner already. DWWP correctly said that Dr. Bob's observatory is in Northwood, which is also the patron city of sacrifice. Okay, the next question for another 1,000 crowns. Bentham, poor old Bentham, is credited as the inventor of the omnidirectional Bentham detector and designer of this plan to counter the effects of the comet. He is a curator of a moon tower in which city? Okay, have a think about that. You're listening to Podcasts and Poetry on Avatars Radio, Radio of the Avatars. And while you're thinking about that, I will just reassure everybody that in spite of what we've heard about this from this wonderful story about the effects of the comet, you realise it's not really going to happen, okay? The Moon Tower network is intact. I just did a quick inspection. I looked out the window of the studio. It looks fine. Everything's fine. We're not in any danger of disruption of the network of any kind, of attack by any distorted or malformed creatures. We are absolutely safe. The comet is not doing anything dangerous. We are going to be fine. Nothing is going to happen. All right. Now, our next item, while we're thinking about that, another great one. Okay, what's going on here?
Testing. 1, 2, 3. Test. I don't know if anyone can hear me. Hopefully there's someone listening. If so, don't bother to respond. My receiver was demolished in the initial assault, and I won't be able to hear you. We have only enough emergency battery power to transmit for a short time. Our town, Solis Bridge, is under attack. We few who survived the Blitz have barricaded ourselves in a fortified underground bunker. I don't know how long we'll last, but...
Okay, I don't know what that was all about. Maybe somebody hijacking our frequency, maybe somebody having a bit of fun. I will send somebody to investigate that, though. We do try to be responsible in our network. Yeah. In the meantime, keep on thinking about Bentham, and we have another awesome item from Rim Starcrossed. This is Spindleskoog, the prologue. And if you'd like to visit their studio, I have a number of books on the desk that are written by the author, and you're free to take one. So come along, take one. If you can't get to the studio, let me know. I can post you one. But here we go, Spindleskoog, the prologue. Spindleskoog, A Shaman's Journey. Prologue. The serenade of tree frogs, night birds, and crickets that habitually accompanied the closure of the day had evidently been cancelled, due presumably to the pending inclement weather. An ominous hush had descended upon the mere, or as another winner would have it, the mire, the swamp. Small bones suspended from the spirit wheel hanging just outside the doorway clattered faintly in the stiffening evening breeze. Gusting winds, muffled rolls of thunder echoing in the distance, and sporadic flashes of lightning portended an imminent storm. I sat in the hut of Elder Bodil, the shaman, in the village of Tanglemere, on the frigid isle of Slangehole, in the Mistrander archipelago, listening.
Runes are the letters in which the book of creation is continually being written. Literacy in this cryptic script allows the practitioner not only to read that which was, that which is, and that which is yet to be, but also to become the author of his own part in this complex saga, to chart his own course in navigating through the convolutions of this confounding labyrinth.
Dimly lighted and warmed by the flickering fire of a single brazier at its centre, the single-roomed shelter was suffused by the subtle fragrance of fresh-cut sweetgrass. The soft furs upon which we sat partially concealed its rough plank floor.
Many are the pitfalls awaiting the unwary. A single misstep can plunge a reckless seeker swiftly, inexorably to his doom. And make no mistake, there are inimical forces direly opposed to the pilgrim's progress on this path. Creatures, the mere sight of which would chill most men's blood to ice, lurk in the shadows.
With a forked green twig, he deftly drew a glowing coal from the pulsing crimson embers of the fire's bed. Tendrils of aromatic smoke spiraled from the bowl as he puffed, kindling his tobacco pipe back to life. Inhaling deeply, his eyes drifted closed in contentment. Then he leisurely exhaled a blue-grey plume that slowly wound its way upward to dissipate in the thatching overhead.
A stone into which such a rune is engraved by an Arulian, a rune master, holds power, and that magic energy is unprincipled. It can be used for either good or ill. Where the enemy employs it to animate his undead minions, we turn it to a force of benevolence, either for healing or in warding away evil.
He rose, and I followed through the doorway onto the simple porch that fronted his humble abode. We stood a few feet above the muck of the surrounding terrain. The hooch had been erected atop thick, creosote-coated poles in the swamp that surrounded the village, some distance from the hustle and bustle inevitably associated with community life. The invigorating scent of fresh ozone borne on the winds of the approaching thunderstorm filled my nostrils. The shaman lightly nudged the wolf totem swinging from the spirit wheel suspended from the eaves.
Our most effective means of repelling undead spirits, both corporeal and disincarnate, has proven to be these spirit wheels. Magical talismans designed specifically for that purpose. A spirit wheel or warder requires a scrap of cloth from a burial shroud, a miniature stone effigy of Brother Wolf totem, and the bone of a dead man, each hung from one quadrant of a ruined ring. They serve to focus and attune the amulet's energy, but it is utterly useless without the fundamental dynamism, the motivating energy delivered by an intact rune stone.
Elder Bodil, extending an arm, directed my gaze to the northern horizon. The panorama was dominated by the imposing rise of a spire jutting into the night sky, silhouetted against the backdrop of roiling, threatening storm clouds, and highlighted intermittently by the approaching tempest's blue electric flares. Spindleskog.
Many villagers avoid so much as whispering its name, for fear that its very utterance will draw the attentions of the malignant forces gathering therein. Few now are there who remember its meaning in the ancient language, and fewer still those who speak it.
In my studies with the shaman, I'd learned somewhat of the old tongue. He paused, scrutinized me intently, and, quite unexpectedly, stretched forth his withered hand to tap the centre of my forehead with his gnarled knuckle. Memories of a past lesson flooded my consciousness, washing away any awareness of the present.
In the names of the three islands comprising Mistrendor, Shulongya Hude, Shulongya Magyar, and Shulongya Hole on which we now stand, the term Shulongya is the archaic word for serpent. The three are named then for the parts of the serpent to which the shape of these carries correspond. Hutar is head or hood, Magyar, the center isle is middle, and Hol is tail, or hell.
My cognizance abruptly returned to the present. Dazed, I blinked. Elder Bodil chuckled softly, his eyes twinkling mischievously, then resumed, unnervingly, as though he were continuing the discourse of my recollections.
Skoog is basically the word for forest. Spindul has retained its meaning, something tapered, such as the spindle on a spinning wheel on which a thread is wound.
All too well could I imagine that soaring, sharply narrowing pinnacle, that spindle, as a monstrous tail thrust defiantly toward the heavens. Jormungand, Ouroboros, the world snake.
Across this land of danger and despair, you must travel to yon Spindul Skoog. They're on the extreme northern shore of our island. As the darkness to the north grows stronger, we become more desperate for the power to contain it. This, then, is your twofold task. Banish those undead whom you encounter back into the unholy hell from which they sprang, and thus diminish the enemy's mounting horde, and retrieve from them the rune stones which they carry to remain animate in this world. Each stone will empower another spirit wheel to be placed along the perimeter of that foul forest and restrict the adversaries to their lair.
I am ready, I responded solemnly.
Ba, you have no idea of the terrors that await.
Music for this piece is by Pixabay. Voice actors Ascelpius and Sadhguru from FAQ/TTS. Sound effects by Freesound. Mixing NCH Software. Technical Word Hippo. Norwegian translations and pronunciations. Full production notes can be viewed at avatarsradio.rocks/production notes. Okay, now there you go. Now that is but the beginning of the story. There are 4 chapters to follow, would you believe? And they are just as good. In movie parlance, chapter 1 is in the can. So that's ready to go. And there are 3 more to follow. So stick around. It's an amazing story. All right, now, returning to our pop quiz. Well, DWWP again won that one. Bentham, of course, is in Al's head. Now, I'm wondering whether to ask this one, but whatever. A difficult question, maybe. It's worth 2,000 crowns, so I'll give you a little while to work it out. These 4 researchers that were featured in the story, they were actually modelled after and taken from researchers that you will find in the game if you encounter them on an overland situation. Okay. So their names are accurate, their characteristics are accurate. And the promotional poster that we put out is a composite of these 4 characters. Now, what I would like you to do is to tell me their names. And you think, oh, that's not difficult. Yeah, but just to make it a little bit harder, I would like the names in order from left to right, as depicted on the promotional poster. See if you can do that. Okay. Anyway, we'll get back to it. Now, just an update. We have had a look at the network. It looks pretty good. There are 1 or 2 issues, maybe. I'm not really sure. We're getting a bit of garbled information from some of the territories, but look, I'm sure we're okay. I hope you're still receiving the signal. If you are, good luck. But yeah, we'll move on to the next story. It's a wonderful story by Ender Andrew. Oh, okay, here we go again.
Hello. Hello. We lost sync but have regained it. The alert disruption is wreaking havoc on the airwaves. They descended on our town without warning. We were taken entirely unprepared in the middle of the night. Zombies! That's right! I said zombies. End of the world apocalypse, risen straight from hell. Chamblin! Gibbering! Undead! Zombies! And now, I haven't been drinking. Wave after wave after wave of them. They just kept coming.
All right, so the problem may be a little bit more severe than we thought, but we're holding on by string and gaffer tape. We'll be fine. We'll see if we can get to the end of this broadcast. The Green Rogue, Chapter 1 by Ender Andrew. Hello everyone, this is Ascelpius with a wonderful story from Ender Andrew entitled The Green Rogue, Volume 1, told by Juris the Scribe. Background music, Fossil Evidence by Smart Sound. Joseph had a bad feeling about this. He had argued for years that water was safer than land, especially in Norgard, where armies of kobolds eagerly awaited foolish merchants who left the safe confines of Estgard and entered the craggy, wooded roads leading into Valhold. Yet, that is precisely what he was doing at the moment. He preferred to take skiffs up the Oso River, as he never saw kobolds building boats. Some called them crafty and far more intelligent than their monstrous demeanour might suggest. But Joseph always argued that if kobolds had any wits about them, they'd be on skiffs as well. That was before kobold archers and mages sank his last skiff from the riverbanks. Even though there are few places to hide along the mostly flat riverbanks, he was complacent and ambushed. Since he lost his entire shipment on that trip and was lucky to survive, his partners insisted they take the quicker route on land this time. The weight of their parcel would have made a small skiff impractical as well. They were bringing a new anvil to Valhold. Amazingly enough, they had spent so many years constantly crafting new arms for Norgard troops and their never-ending war with the kobolds that they had actually worn through the old anvil. Joseph hadn't thought that possible, but he also didn't think it was possible for kobolds to make him look a fool. That never-ending war also had the king's attention focused to the northeast, across the thrones of Skrek. This road was constantly travelled, but rarely maintained. The uneven roads and weight meant that even with this direct route, they travelled slower than Joseph would have liked. But he wasn't about to push their horses and end up having to re-shoe one on the road while they sat still and helpless. He kept telling himself that so long as they kept a steady pace and his armed guards flanked him, they'd make it to Valhold safely. But that nagging feeling just wouldn't go away. Just then, a figure dropped down from above, landing right next to Joseph in the front of the stagecoach. Before Joseph could react, the masked bandit had a blade to his throat. His guards started to pull their weapons, but Joseph could feel the blade biting into his flesh ever so slightly. "Stop!" he yelled. The guards hesitated as more bandits emerged from the trees and circled the stagecoach. "Your guards will get off their horses and throw their blades to the side. We will take your horses and this coach. After we ride off, your guards can reclaim their blades in case you run into kobolds. We're thieves, but not monsters." Though he could feel a trickle of blood at his throat, Joseph regained his composure. "I thought I was afraid, but you're a coward, dropping from trees and stealing from honest merchants." The bandit pushed the blade in even closer. "Do not make me regret letting you live. I am no coward, and I will kill anyone who swears otherwise. Perhaps you haven't heard of the famous Green Rogue. I have the courage to challenge lords and kings alike, even a titan. While King Granus keeps us in never-ending war, who will stop him? He cannot continue his attack on the kobolds and protect his people at the same time. That is why he does not really have people. You are vassals, blind servants to a king who would lead you to your death." The bandit eased up on the blade and urged Joseph to step down from the coach. As he rode off with his stolen goods, he shouted one last thought. "Tell the lords of Norgard what happened. Tell them how their authority is questioned and how their people suffer because of them." To be continued. Okay, well, one, that wasn't as hard as I thought it would be, and two, DWWP has done it again. Oh my goodness. We're going to have to put a temporary ban on this guy. He wins a loudspeaker, portable Bluetooth speaker, and then 4,000 crowns just for turning up. That's pretty awesome. And of course, the characters were Eunice, Yorgi, Armenius, and Catty. So there you are. Good eyesight and good picking. Congratulations, DWWP. And look, we're still working on the network. Yeah, I think it's still working. I think we're getting through. Okay, we do have some towers that look as if they're down, but we're going to get there, okay? It's all going to be fine. Nothing is going to go wrong.
Nothing we could do. They'd wiped out half the village before we were even aware. Wait, what's that? No.
All right, well, that's probably one area we don't have to worry about, I guess. Okay, yes, we have to admit the network has problems. If you're still receiving the signal, that's a flaming miracle. We will try to get to the end of this broadcast without any more interruptions, I hope. And hey, as soon as the comet leaves, I'm sure we'll be fine. We're going to go to the next chapter of The Green Rogue by Ender Andrew. Hello everyone, this is Ascelpius with the second part of a brilliant story from Ender Andrew. It is entitled The Green Rogue, Volume 2, told by Joris the Scribe. Background music, The Dark Amulet by Matthew Pablo at www.matthewpablo.com. Do not look down, young Alex. You must keep your eyes up, Sir Gregor insisted. Alex didn't need a reminder of how dangerous these lands were. He couldn't stop thinking about it. He saw troops return from battle all the time, screaming in their hospital litters as surgeons shoved their guts back in or sawed off limbs not fit for saving. Their screams haunted him every year of his youth. These were brave men when they left, and they returned screaming in pieces. Some did not return at all, and Alex always wondered if their fate was worse or better. "I'm too young to die," Alex muttered. He looked up, but kept pulling at his gloves. His hands weren't quite large enough for them, and he felt his grip on his blade wasn't secure enough. His armour was rushed for the occasion, and his body wasn't quite the full size of a man, though his father sought to prove he was. As are we all. No man knows the length of a life, but they all end too soon. You will not speak of such things again. That is how we die, being distracted by fear. Courage to conquer that fear comes from being mindful of what you love, what you are willing to fight for. Think of home and how you wish to return. Think of what you must do today to accomplish that task, and we will both return home alive. I promise you that. Sir Gregor's armour was well worn. The smithy smoothed out each dent and repaired each hole as best they could, but any trained eye could see that it was not pristine, especially the artisanry of his father's crest. An artisan may take great pride the first time they emblazon new plate mail with their art, but a smithy takes less care in repairing anything that isn't needed for functionality. Sir Gregor fought the kobolds on dozens of occasions. He was not afraid, and Alex's father trusted him with his life. Alex should be reassured. He was not. He wondered if the very same words were spoken to the countless men who did not make it home alive. If so, what good was that promise? Alex had never taken a life, nor seen a kobold up close. He had been educated on them and their tactics. He had been trained for this moment, but he did not want it. He could not help being born the Lord's son in a kingdom full of war, stretching back centuries since the fall. Each new year passed, and more men lined up to prove their courage against kobold armies. But secretly, Alex wondered if maybe this war stretched even longer. What if it started before the fall? What if never-ending war is what led to the cataclysm? What if he had no desire to define courage in the amount of blood his sword spilled? It was too late. Sir Gregor deflected as much of the blast of the fireball as he could with his shield, but Alex felt the singe of burning flesh. It was his poorly fitting gloves that made him drop his sword, he told himself. He saw Sir Gregor besieged by a full squad of kobolds, clawing their way past his armour. He swung furiously in defence, but Alex feared it wouldn't be enough. But it was the bloodlust. Alex looked one in the eye, and he saw a desire to kill that he did not share. He knew that kobold would not hesitate. He would blame the bloodlust, but he had no real excuse. He fled, hearing Sir Gregor's screams and the kobold's laughter behind him. He ran and ran. He never really stopped running. To be continued. Okay, and finally, we have our third news story for the day. This is a brief story. Look, I love it when people send stories in. I love new content. It's fantastic. And this is one from Inyafet. Apparently she's playing around with AI, generated a lovely little story, passed it off to Rim Starcross, who passed it off onto me. And this is the result. Here we go. So, look, don't be afraid to hand anything in, people. If you've got a story within you, be it short or long, I'd love to hear it. The Chronicles of Seal Astra. Seal Astra cut through the dense forests of Novia like a tempest. Her twin blades, Dawnbringer and Duskslayer, gleamed in the dappled sunlight. Each swing was a symphony of steel, a dance that spoke of vengeance and freedom. Beside her, Mare Imbrey, a nightmare, moved with ethereal grace. Her obsidian coat shimmered, and her eyes held the secrets of forgotten constellations. Mare Imbrey was more than a companion. She was Seal's confidant, her silent witness to battles fought and scars earned. Their quest was simple: slay the ancient evils that plagued Novia. Kobolds scurried from their burrows, their eyes like burning coals. Seal dispatched them swiftly, her blades a blur of silver. Mare Imbrey's fiery breath reduced their nests to smouldering embers. But it was the dragons that tested their mettle. The skies trembled as Vermithrax, a black-scaled worm, descended. Its eyes bore the weight of centuries, and its breath could melt stone. Seal's heart raced as she faced the beast, her blades humming with anticipation.
Seal, you must slay the beast,
Mare Imbrey whispered.
Let your blades sing.
Seal nodded, her muscles coiled. Dawnbringer and Duskslayer danced in harmony, their edges tracing arcs of death. Vermithrax lunged, jaws snapping. Seal twisted, evading the deadly maw. Her blades found purchase, first the left eye, then the right. The dragon roared, its blood staining the forest floor. Mare Imbrey circled, gradually closing in, her hooves striking the ground. Together they pressed the attack. Seal's blades carved through scales, seeking the heart. Vermithrax thrashed, but its strength waned. In a final, desperate surge, Seal leaped onto the dragon's back. She drove both blades into its skull, piercing the brain. Vermithrax collapsed, its death throes shaking the earth. Seal stood victorious, bloodied but unbroken. Mare Imbrey nudged her, their minds entwined.
Novia is safer,
she murmured.
For now.
Seal wiped her blades clean, her gaze on the horizon. More dragons would come, more battles to fight. But she had her swords, her nightmare companion, and a promise to keep. Novia would thrive, its skies free from ancient terrors. And so the legend of Seal Astra and Mare Imbrey grew, a tale of courage, sacrifice, and the unbreakable bond between a swordswoman and her otherworldly companion. As long as the moon hung in Novia's sky, their blades would sing, and darkness would yield to their relentless resolve. This piece was crafted with the aid of AI, also using the voice of Emily from Revoicer. The background music is an original composition by Rim Starcrossed, crafted in the ABC format. And that was Podcast and Poetry. Thanks for coming, everybody. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for playing. And I hope you enjoyed it as much as I did. We are going to have at least one brand new, fresh story next time. Hopefully more. So don't forget to tune in, because the Spindle Skoog story has another 4 chapters to run. So there will be more, trust me, and it'll be well worth listening to. Okay, this program is recorded. It'll be replayed Saturday morning at 8 a.m. and Sunday at midday Pacific time on Avatars Radio. And we got a music show next week and podcast the week after. So until then, thanks for tuning in. Stay safe, look after yourselves, and immediately after the program, you will get a special first look at the news on the hour. Okay, so thank you, everybody. Stay safe and good night. This is Avatars Radio, news on the hour. Give us 10 minutes and we'll give you the metaverse. Today's news can be found on the web at avatarsradio.rocks/news on the hour. Good day, Avatars. I'm Ascelpius reporting. This is our report for Tuesday, June 11, 2024. Coming up in Multiverse News. Feudal Japan setting in Assassin's Creed Shadows unveiled. Life is Strange double exposure announced with controversy. Animal Crossing Aquarium Tour begins June 14th. Starfield's Creation Kit launches in June 2024. Xbox CEO Phil Spencer defends controversial studio closures. But first, the Avatars Radio programming schedule for the upcoming week. Monday at 5 p.m. Pacific is Radio Oz with yours truly, Asclepius. Friday at 6 p.m. Pacific is The Beat of Novia, a Friday night electronic dance music show with Alain Dragonfire. On Sunday, June 16th at 4 p.m. Pacific, Dark Lord Salathorain returns to the airwaves with his faster, louder, eclectic rock mix. Join us in-game at our studio in Immortal City and other venues during our live radio sets. Find out when we're live next at avatarsradio.rocks/schedule. And now for the local news in Shroud of the Avatar. It's almost summertime and the tea is steeping. On Sunday, June 23rd at 1 p.m. Pacific, Lilybird will host a green tea party. Enjoy tea, cake and cupcakes. Riddles with prizes will be presented and comfy chairs will be available for relaxation and naps. The location will be announced soon. The Lightbringer Isle auction occurs monthly on the last Sunday of the month at 9 a.m. Pacific. Sellers can submit items to Hemnew Lightbringer via Discord, the auction house or mail, including a starting bid and optional reserve price. Items must be delivered by the preceding Friday, with a 10% sales commission applied. Payments are made to sellers within 48 hours of the auction. Buyers face penalties for non-payment. All participants must maintain respect and fairness with no price debates. Hey anglers, the Haven Ridge June Fishing Contest is now live until the 31st. One winner per category and no double dipping, Avatars. If there's a tie, the first to catch wins. The grand prize is 1,000 kotos, 100,000 in-game gold, a market lot and a gold trophy. The largest lava fish gets 500 kotos, 50,000 in-game gold and a silver trophy. The largest freshwater fish wins 250 kotos, 25,000 in-game gold and a bronze trophy. The smallest combined fish scores 100 kotos, 10,000 gold and a sofa and chair set. Send your fish to Lebu Lionheart in-game or drop them in the chest by the main dock. Haven Ridge is at the mountain's base just outside Castle Athos. Good luck. The Release 126 fishing tournament, organised by Governor Diablo team, runs from May 31 to June 26, 2024. Participants catch trophy fish during this period and mail them to Diablo team. Prizes are awarded for the longest fish: gold, silver, bronze trophies and kotos. Categories include freshwater, lava and PvP. Only one prize per player. Donations are accepted and used for the next cycle. Check the official forums for more information. Happy fishing! A Largest Pumpkin contest runs until June 26th. Players must find the largest pumpkin trophy crafted by specific avatars in Novia. The largest and runner-up pumpkins win prizes. Entries can be submitted by mail or in Duinor in the drop-off chest outside the dungeon. Special bounties and prize updates will be announced. Visit the official forums for details. Avatars Radio is chaotic community radio. That means you can have your town, shop, guild or other event announcements aired during News on the Hour at no charge. To have your events showcased during this program, simply post your announcements on the official Shroud of the Avatar Player Events Forum section at www.shroudoftheavatar.com/forum. Please note that News on the Hour is 10 minutes long, so we can't guarantee your event will air in every report. Join the Avatars Radio Patreon to ensure your event announcements are aired regularly, up to 24 times daily, and to advertise. Visit avatarsradio.rocks/patron for details. In multiverse news, Ubisoft's Assassin's Creed Shadows, set in feudal Japan, was showcased at Summer Game Fest 2024. Players will control two characters, Nao, a stealthy assassin, and Yasuke, a samurai. Players can choose different mission approaches, stealth with Nao or direct combat with Yasuke. The game allows replaying missions with the other characters for a different experience. Shadows features a non-linear story with seasonal weather changes. The demo showed Yasuke exploring a village, fighting rivals, and Naoi sneaking into enemy camps. This dual protagonist setup and long-demanded Japan setting adds new twists to the franchise. Shadows is the most anticipated Assassin's Creed game yet. Life is Strange Double Exposure was announced at the June Xbox Showcase. The game follows the original protagonist, Max Caulfield, as she solves her friend's murder by jumping between timelines. It releases on October 29 for $50, but the $80 Ultimate Edition offers early access to the first two chapters on October 15. The Ultimate Edition includes cosmetic options and a side quest, which removes access to content for base game players. Critics argue that this pricing risks spoilers and is anti-player. Despite the controversy, many fans are excited to revisit Max's story and explore the new supernatural adventure. Animal Crossing New Horizons Aquarium is going on tour this summer. Starting June 14, fans can visit aquariums in several cities for Animal Crossing themed exhibits. The tour includes Ripley's Aquarium in South Carolina, Audubon Aquarium in Louisiana, Georgia Aquarium, Oregon Coast Aquarium, Sea Life Arizona Aquarium, and Tennessee Aquarium. Visitors can enjoy themed signs, photo ops, standees of characters, and My Nintendo kiosks. Meet and greets with characters like Isabelle and Tom Nook will occur on select days. Tickets are included in general admission. Additionally, KK Slider Lego sets will be available starting August 1. More details are on the official Nintendo website. Bethesda Game Studios released the June 2024 update for Starfield, including the hotly anticipated Creation Kit. This tool allows players to create and share mods on Bethesda.net using creation credits. Premium Edition owners receive 1,000 credits. The update also adds new missions, a bounty scanner system, new melee weapon tiers, and the ability to modify melee weapons. The announcement follows the Xbox Summer Games Showcase, where Bethesda revealed the first trailer for the upcoming Shattered Space expansion. Like Skyrim and Fallout 4, the Starfield Creation Kit empowers players to create new content like quests, environments, and characters. Those interested in modding their Bethesda games should also know that Bethesda.net is a paid mod platform with a limited number of mods. In contrast, other modding platforms, such as Nexus, offer thriving communities with many more mods at no charge. Phil Spencer, Xbox CEO, defended closing studios like Tango Gameworks and Arcane Austin to sustain the business. He emphasized severance support for affected staff. Critics argue his decisions contradict goals of creativity and inclusivity. Xbox laid off over 1,900 people across ZeniMax and Activision Blizzard last year. Critics say acquisitions led to job cuts and closures, while focusing on business sustainability. Despite promoting game preservation and inclusivity, actions like cancelling PS5 ports contradict these ideals. Spencer's tenure, marked by layoffs and closures, undermines trust within Xbox. Critics highlight inconsistent support for developers and concerns about future stability, questioning his leadership and Xbox's direction. These are the first 15 of over 30 PC game releases in today's report, listed alphabetically. The complete list with video trailers and descriptions can be found on our Discord server at avatarsradio.rocks/discord. Alien Cafe free-to-play, Lunar Lander Redux, Confidential Mission, Humans vs. Monsters, Escape from Benjamin's Room, Thoko free-to-play, Harrowed World, What's Past is Portents, Vampire Visual Novel free-to-play, Rocket Knight Adventures Resparked, Tour de Drone, Defence of the Dauntless, Fork Road, Bishojo Battlefield, Dear Mom, My Letter to You, Parallel, Whacking Hell. That is all the news on the hour for this hour, broadcast at the top of every hour. If you've missed the top of the hour, just head over to avatarsradio.rocks/news on the hour to listen to today's and past News on the Hour reports. Listeners can also discuss the news in each report's comments section. Avatars and developers can submit local news and event announcements for broadcast at the Event Coverage Service Desk on Discord. You are tuned in to Avatars Radio, independent community radio of the Avatars, broadcasting inside MMO games, on the web, simulcasting DJ-hosted live shows and player and developer in-game events live on TV at twitch.tv/avatarsradiorocks.